This is Biological Transitions, Part 7. We're talking about the impact of early and late maturation on boys and girls. We see some major differences in terms of early maturation and late maturation, so we're going to go through both. I'm going to give you the pros and cons of each one. Okay, early maturing boys. They have two big pros. The first one is that they're more popular because they look more adult-like. They also have better self-esteem, maybe because they look more adult-like and they're able to do more adult-like activities because they're stronger, they're taller, so on and so forth. But they do have some cons. We tend to see more substance use and delinquency with early maturing boys. Also, precocious sexual activity, early sexual activity. We see a greater impact of victimization. That's bullying. We start to see possible elevated levels of depression and anxiety. Some studies say yes, some studies say no. So that's what the possible is in there for. But we definitely see early maturing boys will lose their temper more often, and the result is much more intense. Late maturing boys tend to score higher on tests of intellectual curiosity and social initiative. They also develop better coping skills, probably because they kind of had to cope with being the last to develop while they watched their friends go through it. The cons to a late maturing boy, well, they're more susceptible to depression later on in life in young adulthood. But girls, an early maturing girl has a rough time because the only pro that we can really find is that they're popular. But generally, the only popularity that comes with that is from boys because these early maturing girls have boobs. They wear bras. They look more womanly. And so boys tend to pay them more attention. Maybe it's not really a pro, but we're going to mark it as a pro, but we're going to see it kind of reflected in the cons as well. We've already talked about how early maturing girls have kind of poor self-image and have higher rates of things like panic attacks, social anxiety, eating disorders, and depression. And we've talked about that because we have that increase in the weight gain earlier than everybody else, and it kind of tends to stick around. And so we see that poor self-image because of it. They are more often victims of rumors and gossip from other individuals, mainly other girls, and also sexual harassment because, again, they look more adult-like. They are more likely to engage in early sexual intercourse, and they're more likely to experience poor physical health later on in adulthood. A late maturing girl is twice as likely to continue education beyond high school. That's our major pro, and we see that through some studies. But the con is that they are more susceptible to depression in adulthood. So, why is early maturation so much harder for girls than boys? Well, there are 3 theories that might be able to explain it. The first is called maturational deviance. So, maturational deviance basically says that there are people who are different than their peers, and because they aren't able to really blend in with the crowd, it causes them more psychological distress than those who are able to kind of blend in and be a part of the crowd and look like everybody else. But because they look different, they kind of stand out. Okay, that's the first one. The second one is called developmental readiness. And so this says that puberty requires psychological adaptation, and younger adolescents are less ready to cope with those challenges. So once a child hits puberty early and younger than everybody else, they kind of haven't quite stepped it up with their coping skills. And so because of that, they face these challenges. And then the last one is cultural disability for a perfect body. Early maturation really leaves behind the culturally admired state of thinness. So when you mature early, you're no longer this ideal body type that maybe you were before puberty, which according to a lot of cultural guidelines is rail thin. You know what though? We actually see that cultures vary on what they think is an admired body type. And so we don't see higher rates of depression in many Latinx females or many Black females because they have a different culturally admired body type, which kind of embraces more curvy bodies. So like a larger behind or bigger hips, or things like that. So, these are the three theories. Take them or leave them. But that is going to conclude this video.